Hello, and welcome. Welcome to Saliva Cast, where science meets clinical reality. I'm Dr. Deborah Heller, your host, dentist, scientist, and founder of Saliva Pro. And today's episode start with a bold but very necessary statement. Your toothbrush isn't the most important tool for healthy teeth. Your fork is. Yes, dentists, we must have this conversation. Yes, it's time to shift the way we think about oral prevention. Nutrition plays a fundamental role in oral health, saliva function, microbiome balance, and disease development. And with modern lifestyles, more stress, less chewing, I practice intermittent fasting myself, more acidity. This conversation is urgent and needs to reach our clinical practices. Let's dive in. The oral cavity is a very dynamic ecosystem. It hosts hundreds of microbial species protected and regulated by saliva. But this balance is very fragile, and diet is one of its biggest disruptors. Recent research shows that what we eat, what your patient eats, can directly alter salivary pH and flow, microbial diversity, inflammatory markers, and the remineralization potential of enamel. In other words, dentists, food shapes our biofilm and thus our risk. Yes. And okay, I'll give you examples. And I'll start with the easiest and the most well-known association of diet and oral health, caries. Okay, let's start with caries. We know that dietary sugars are linked to caries. We know that caries is a disease modulated by sugar intake and dental biofilm. But here is the key. It's not just the amount, and science has extensively proven this. It's the frequency of sugar intake and the salivary response. Every time we eat fermentable sugars, bacteria that are in our mouth, like Streptococcus mutans, the most well-known bacteria associated with cavities, metabolize sugars and release acids. If the pH drops below 5.5, enamel begins to demineralize. If this happens multiple times a day, between meals, in snacks, or drinks, the saliva, that's our protective shield, the saliva doesn't get the chance to recover the pH as it should. And without saliva, remineralization simply doesn't occur as it should. This is why frequent sipping of sugary drinks, of soda, of lemonade, sugary water can be more damaging than a single dessert, a single cookie that you eat after lunch. And dentists, are you explaining this to your patient? It's about time we bring the conversation about diet to our clinical practices. Saliva is your patient's natural buffer. It neutralizes the pH. Saliva isn't just moisture, it's a critical protective fluid. It helps buffer acids, clean food debris, it cleanses the oral cavity and maintains the equilibrium of the oral microbiota. It maintains a healthy microbial environment. But this protection depends on saliva flow rate and the quality and composition of saliva, and also on the diet, on the nutritional intake. Modern habits, just as dehydration, medication, ultra processed diets, can all impair salivary function. There's even a recent review, and any paper that I cite on SalivaCast, if you want to have access to it, just make sure you follow me on Instagram. I'm Dr. Deborah Heller on Instagram. Follow me there. Say, Deborah, I watch SalivaCast. Please send me the paper you mentioned on this episode, and I'll send you directly to you. There is a recent review that shows that moderate deficiencies in protein, vitamin A, vitamin D, and iron reduce salivary defense, specifically against acidic attacks. Yes, dentists, it impacts oral health. Diet and oral health must go together, and we must bring this connection to our daily clinical practice. Deborah, okay, that's great, but caries isn't the only problem. And actually, what we're seeing today in our dental practices, and it's the same in my office, we're seeing more tooth wear, more erosive lesions, even in patients with they have great oral hygiene. They say, brush 3 times a day, I floss. But dental erosion, tooth wear, which is a non-bacterial loss of hard tissues caused by acids, often from food and drink, has become every day more common. And common dietary acids include citric acid, found in citrus fruits and juices. That lemon shot that you did this morning, yes, that's it. Phosphoric acid from colas, acetic acid, vinegar, salad dressing, and carbonic acid when we talk about sparkling water or wine. And here's the problem, okay? When a patient is having this acidic drink, sipping it slowly or frequently, it increases the time of exposure and the pH drops, and often below 5.5 pH, which is the pH that we have demineralization of the tooth. So patients with low saliva flow, patients with dry mouth are especially vulnerable. Dentists, you need to tell your patient this. Repetitive acidic exposure plus insufficient salivary protection equals progressive enamel loss. Your patient must know this. A high sugar, low fiber, high fat diet, that many times that's the reality of modern lifestyles of our patients before we educate them, will promote acidogenic and aciduric bacteria like the strep mutans I mentioned or lactobacillus. It also promotes not only an increase of pathogenic bacteria, so of bacteria associated with disease, but it also reduces the amount of beneficial species. And it brings, consequently, a greater inflammatory load. On the other hand, if we can educate our patients to have a diet rich in fibers, antioxidant, nitrate-rich vegetables. This supports a balanced microbiome and anti-inflammatory response. What we eat doesn't just feed us, it feeds the microbiome and it shapes our oral health trajectory. So it's up to us as clinicians to go beyond dental plaque control. We must go beyond dental plaque control. And I'm counting on you to share this episode of Saliva Cast with a colleague, with a dentist that needs this information. Also, make sure you follow, you favorite us as your favorite podcast, Saliva Cast. Leave here a comment. We love to hear your feedback. And also, if you think this is valuable to you, send it to your patient. They must know this information. What we should recommend as clinicians, we must go beyond dental plaque control. Here are practical, evidence-based dietary strategies to support oral health. Encourage your patient to have a high fiber, to eat high fiber vegetables and fruits. Cheese and dairy stimulate saliva. Nuts and seeds, water, and green tea. And also encourage them to limit the frequent intake of acidic drinks, lemon juice, soda, wine, coffee, to limit sugary snacks between meals, and to limit the use of vinegar-based and carbonated products. Also, you may want to individualize this recommendation that not to brush right after acidic intake. And this recommendation is very important for patients with dry mouth. And for sure, dentists, you want to consider testing salivary pH, buffer capacity, saliva flow rate, and to incorporate to your daily clinical practice diet history and symptom mapping. If we want to prevent the diseases we see every day, caries, tooth wear, gingival inflammation, we must start at the table, not just at the toothbrush. That means, dentist, and I count on you to do this with me, educating patients about the impact of frequent acidity, identifying high-risk dietary patterns, including nutrition in our preventive plans, using salivary diagnostics to assess risk and personalized care. We can no longer separate diet from dentistry. Your fork changes your oral health. Your fork actually changes your flow, and your flow changes your biofilm, and your biofilm changes your future. If this episode made you rethink your clinical approach, I have a small challenge for you right now. At your next appointment, ask your patient not only how they brush, but what they eat, how often, and if they've noticed dry mouth. And if you want to start using saliva and diet together as part of your prevention strategy, you're more than welcome to join us at Saliva Pro. You'll find the link in my bio, or you can send me a direct message on Instagram, Dr. Deborah Heller on Instagram. Say, Deborah, I listen to SalivaCast. I'm interested in Saliva Pro. I'm interested to bring in saliva diagnostics to my daily clinical practice so I can really act on prevention in a very strategic way and individualize the oral health care that I prescribe for my patients. Also, my email is very easy. It's Debra, Debora, at salivapro.com. You can email me. You can send me a direct message on Instagram. I am here for you. For those curious, this episode was inspired by several articles, including a very recently published chapter on the book that we were honored to contribute, The Oral Microbiome by Springer. Also, if you want access to any of the articles and papers I mentioned here, just send me a quick message and I'll make sure you get access to that. Don't forget to follow SalivaCast on Spotify and YouTube and to share this episode with a colleague. And let's bring prevention to the next level. We can do this together. Thanks for joining me. Until the next time, I'll see you at the next SalivaCast. Thank you so much for following us today, and I'll see you at the next episode.